So let's talk about England summer. Their win against Japan, then going to New Zealand and losing both those games, very tight games. Was the tour a success or a failure? Let's look at the big picture and also break down the squad involved. Did their reputations go up, down or stay the same? The big positives is, I guess they went toe-to-toe with the All Blacks and they could have won at least one match. They'll think they should have won both of them, of course. And another big positive is this is a dangerous-looking England team in attack. You had Marcus Smith at 10. We'll talk about him more in a minute. We had Furbank at fullback. They're moving the ball around. They're stressing defences and they're scoring tries, which is something they hadn't done a lot of in the past. Certainly at the end of the Eddie Jones era, it was really running dry and it's only just started coming back recently, so that is good. They've definitely had a chance to bed in a lot of newer players who look here to stay, the likes of George Martin, who's kind of newish. I know he's in the World Cup as well, but Cunningham South, Faye Wabusu. And to be fair to England, the bulk of this squad could go through all the way to the World Cup. Not too many older players there, maybe Jamie George, Cole and Marler, the main ones. Another big positive, the line-out is looking really good in attack, in defence. It was really disrupting. The hook defence, the rush defence is looking more polished and it gave the All Blacks in particular a lot of problems, particularly in that first test. They really should have taken advantage of that. I guess you could say a negative is sides really know it's coming now. They've had lots of data. The big negative, however, is they lost both of those matches against New Zealand. Those are the big matches they need to win if they're going to win, say, World Cups and Six Nations. They've got to win those big close matches and they're definitely not there yet. The scrum, that was a big element to those losses. It is an absolute disaster, considering that the English scrum has had a reputation of being very strong in the past. It is so not the case now. There's an absolute propping crisis. We'll talk about maybe the saving grace on the horizon in the under-20s this year at a later date, but that's kind of wishful thinking, but definitely a big disaster in the scrum, and you're just struggling to win any games when you can't scrummage. Also, they were struggling to retain the ball. The New Zealand jackal threat, their pressure at the breakdown was really impressive. When England got into the final third, they did struggle to retain the ball for long periods. So that's another one to work on. Looking ahead to the autumn, well, it's a massive year for England, really, in fixtures. You've got New Zealand again first up. So talk about a chance to get some revenge at home. That's massive. Or can New Zealand go 3-0? Then Australia, who will be much better for their hit-outs at the beginning and during the Rugby Championship. So that's going to be another big one. And then South Africa, absolutely massive. How is the scrum going to hold up there? I just don't know. And then finishing on Japan. If they lose all three, then they'll hope they'll maybe get a win against Japan. But the fourth consecutive game, they're probably going to be down to using fringe players anyway. So a really interesting autumn, some big fixtures, an exciting year for England in many ways, even though considering, there's no big cups up for grabs and no competitions up for grabs, shall we say. Then let's get into a breakdown of the squad. Did their reputations go up, down or stay the same? I think the key's pretty self-explanatory. I know Ezekwe was called up, but he wasn't used, so I haven't put him on there. The front row, well, Finn Baxter, his reputation definitely went up, thrown in at the deep end, and he did really well. Many thought I marked him harshly in that last test. I marked kind of all the English players a little harsh in that last test because they didn't win the game, essentially. Marler stays the same. He only had a few minutes anyway before he went off against New Zealand. Rod, unfortunately, goes down. He's brilliant around the park, but against Japan he struggled. Then against New Zealand he struggled. I just don't think he's a big enough scrummager to make a big impact on the international game. Let me know if you think he still needs more time, but I don't think it was a good one for him. The hookers all stay the same. Dan makes a good impact off the bench. George is incredibly solid as a starter. I don't think we learnt anything different there. Tight head wise, well, Cole, I'm putting him down just because he's not having that impact off the bench. The whole point in being there is he comes on and he makes the scrum a real weapon, and he just doesn't. Good fitness for a guy late into his 30s. You've got to respect that, but I just think he's waning slightly. Hayes wasn't used. Stewart does what Stewart does. He's a solid professional, gives his all, occasionally can hold up the scrum, sometimes gets smashed, is keen round the pitch. I just don't think he's quite of the highest level, but he's probably the best England have at the moment. Second row wise, I'm a little bit disappointed in Alex Coles. He played well, but I don't think he exploded onto the scene to say, I should be starting, but still he's there as the third choice, second row. When Chesson comes back, that's going to be 4. Of course, Charlie Alls goes down, coming on, getting a red card straight away. Most thought he probably shouldn't have been on tour. He was probably trying too hard to show I can make an impact on the international stage, but surely that is it for him. Itoje has had definitely a second win there. When he's full of energy, he's amazing. When he blows up and runs out of energy, he can be a bit of a disaster, as we saw in that last test. They definitely left him on too late. They were trying to get 3 second rows on to really make a mess of that New Zealand line out, but he definitely blew up at the end. But what he did do was impressive. Apparently, before the tour, there was talk of limiting his minutes because of player welfare. Goodness knows what happened there. He played the whole lot, and fair play to him, still putting it about. Just a pain in the arse to play. Players in interviews for the other team just say how annoying Itoje is to play against. And Martin, fairly similar to be honest, really physical, smashing the counteract, smashing the tackles, big carries, big unit. I like those two a lot, and like I said, when Chesson comes back, that's a good mix there, along with Alex Coles. Happy with those 4. Into the back row, and Chandler Cunningham South, his reputation has to have gone up for sure. He didn't have it all his own way. He still does maybe lose the ball sometimes. He's not the finished article, but we can see he's a quality number 6. It would have been lovely to see him interchange with Ted Hill. Still no idea why he didn't go on tour. We didn't see Ben Curry. Tom Curry we did see quite a lot of, and just didn't make that impact we were expecting maybe. We were hoping of Tom Curry in the past. It looks like they threw him in just too early, coming back from injury straight into international rugby. Give him some time for sale. Don Brown we didn't see. Earl did some really good things and also made a stack of mistakes as well. It's clear that he is still class, so keep him equal, I would say. Roots we didn't see. Underhill was a little underwhelming. Didn't quite have that massive Six Nations that we saw. He's still a very good player. I'm sure he's going to be still in the squad. Scrum half-wise, and we've got 1 up and 2 down. Alex Mitchell showing how invaluable he is. Clearly the number 1. When he went off and Spencer came on in that first test, it was a disaster against New Zealand. Randall's general play in Japan was really, really good, but he had to show his box kicking was up to point, and he put 3 shockers in a row, so it has to be down, although I love his general play. Maybe as an impact sub, maybe he is the man to go for there, but Mitchell the clear winner. On to the fly halves, and Finn Smith probably stays the same. Didn't really have the time to show what he can do to make a case to be first choice, but Marcus Smith was given the time and he pretty much took it with both hands. If only he'd kicked his goals in that first test against New Zealand, you'd say it's almost a perfect tour for him. But goodness me, England's attack just comes alive when he's on the pitch, making those breaks, making those runs, and those crossfield kicks in the second test were sublime. So a big arrow up for him. Centre-wise, we didn't see Dingwall, we didn't see Northmore, so that's kind of a waste of time for them. Lawrence and Slade played all the games. Lawrence, I think, goes up a bit because he showed his carrying, his defence, some of his jackling was pretty good in that first test against New Zealand. Maybe not quite so good in the second test, so still a work in progress, but we really need him because we got no 12s. Slade doing his job at 13. His defence is improving. Like I said, he's not a massive defender. He's not a massive attacker, but he's the best we've got at the moment, unless we start moving players like Tommy Freeman. That's a discussion for another day, but Slade stays the same. The young wingers, I think they pretty much all go up. I've got Freeman as an equals, even though, of course, he scored that amazing crossfield kick, catch above his head try in the second test. I think I knew he could do that, so for me, he stays the same in my head. You might have him up, but he was quiet in that first test. Feyi-Wabusu goes up, had lots of exposure, scored good try. He's not perfect. He's not actually the quickest, but he's very, very slippery. Definitely goes up. Roebuck had 1 touch and did great. Lightholm had a couple of touches and did great, so I guess they go up. Love to see some more of them in the autumn. Fullback, such a shame that Carpenter wasn't used in that second test. With Furbank not being available, Carpenter is more your carbon copy of Furbank, that quick counter-attacking 15. Why they played Stewart, I don't know. It was a terrible mistake because Stewart was just so slow. Nothing he could do about it, but he has to go down a bit more because it showed he's just not quick enough at this level. And what we saw of George Furbank is he is the man now. He's really stepped up to international quality. An all-round game is what we saw in that first test against New Zealand. Attack, defence, high ball, he had the lot, so that is good news. So he is definitely an arrow up. Anyway, let me know what you thought of all of England's players there. Who went up for you? Who went down? Was England summer a success or a failure? Pop all those comments below, and I'll catch you next time.